Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast with Eric Dahl. We're going to talk about business systems today. He's the founder at Dell Integration Marketing, former Liberian track athlete. So we're going to talk about that. He escaped Africa. It was war-torn back in his days, and it's now in the US in Oregon or somewhere near there. And yeah, excited to talk about that today. This podcast brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcasts, find sponsors for your podcast. That's my podcasting agency. Podcasts are amazing to learn, to meet new people, to get subscribers, followers, leads, and even clients. So podpire.com for that. Eric, welcome to the pod. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and your company?
Yeah, sure. So just like kind of you alluded to earlier, so for me, this all started, back in 1991. So when I was 10, and so I'm half Liberian. So Liberia, if you don't know where that is, that's West Africa. And my dad is from Eugene, so he's actually Caucasian. So I'm mixed, if you guys didn't guess. But what happened was we had this really terrible civil war that erupted. So at that age. And in one fell swoop, they told us, "Oh, you're only going to be gone for 2 weeks. Just pack a couple bags," and we end up being gone forever. And so that's my mom's side. But we escaped to the U.S. So we came to Eugene, Oregon, and so that's my dad's side. But in one fell swoop, I lost all that relationship with my mom's side of the family, right? So that's her grandparents. She has 12 siblings, right? So lots of uncles and cousins I just missed out on. And so I learned from a very early age that time is something that once it's gone, it's gone. It's finite, right? We tend to, as entrepreneurs, we tend to say, okay, well, when I get when I get my ducks in a row, then I'll spend more time with my family, or I'll take that vacation, or I'll do that hobby. But the reality is, time waits for nobody, right? And so when I learned that in 1991, I think that's always been kind of in the back of my mind, time, right? Time is just that infinite resource. And so when I got involved in my business, what happened was I was a Olympic hopeful. I was on the Liberian Olympic watch list for the 100-meter dash, and I couldn't find a job that would work around my schedule, right? And so at the time, I had a friend of mine. We partnered up and we started an IT company, here in Eugene, Oregon. And I ended up building that company up. We had 12 employees. We're making over $1 million a year in revenue, and seemed successful. But the problem is, in 2012, I had an injury. I had a hamstring injury. So right before the Olympics, literally a couple of months right before the Olympic trials, and so that just derailed my whole dream. And what happened was, at least the way I personalize it, is that I was run down, I was exhausted, I was tired because I was working so hard, and the business just took over. So I didn't have time to rest. So I was trying to do all these things, right? I was just overwhelmed with everything else that was going on in my life. Overwhelmed, stressed. And so that's why I got hurt, right? So to this day, I feel like, what, if I had a business that was growing by itself, running by itself, I would have been able to be on the track, and I could have fulfilled my dream. That was a once in a lifetime dream. And so I went on this quest that year. So from, really from 2012, so I was late 2012 to, really the end of 2013, I decided I was going to just completely rebel against, this business, right? I was like, I need to make the business work for me for once, and some of you guys out there might be thinking the same thing. You might be working 60-hour weeks. I just talked to a business owner recently that was working 110-hour weeks. And you guys might be going, because society is telling you have to work hard. But I'm here to tell you that it's not about working hard, right? It's about thinking of yourself as an actual business, not an employee, right? Because you didn't start a business to have a job, right? You built a business to have an asset. And in the way I define an independent business is a business that can grow for a year without the business owner's involvement, for a year or more, and the business still grows, runs, and scales without the business owner, right? So I call it an independent business. And so most of us are just stuck. We're stuck in our businesses because we don't think of it like we should be. We think of it as an extension of a job, right? And so we got to break free from that. And so when this injury happened, it really forced me to just rethink, really all the, unlearn, if you will, all the, all the garbage that people have been telling me, about, you got to work hard, you got to be more productive, you got to be more efficient. And in reality, we have to become more strategic. We have to become more systems minded, and we have to really think in terms of, we're building something that is independent of us, right? And so those are the things that I went through. And so anyway, long story short, once I went through this process with myself, I started having, and I was just like happy that I figured it out for myself. But then I started having customers, they started paying attention to what I was doing, right? So they started coming to me for help, so instead of talking about IT stuff, right, they want to talk about, hey, Eric, how do you systematize your business, right? How do you hire? How do you, how do you advertise, right? How do you generate leads? All this stuff. And I was like, oh, I can really help people do this, you know. And so I started doing that, and then slowly but surely, my clients started getting these really huge results, and I realized, so this would have been early 2014. I realized, what, I'm more passionate about seeing a customer who hasn't spent any time with their family, hasn't had time to do dinner for the past week, and now all of a sudden they're able to not just spend time with their family at the dinner table for 20 minutes. Now they're able to take 2 weeks, 1 month, 6 month long vacations, spend all this time with their family, and just see that transformation. That became more my passion, and so that's when I decided, what, I need to make this my life. And this is something I plan on, I basically plan on doing until I die, so I have a mission. And that's really, I think at the end of the day, that's what I've always wanted from my business, is something that I could just be passionate about, something that can outlive me potentially, something that can really change lives and be impact. I didn't want to just have a transactional business. I didn't want to just have something where I'm just making money. I want something that could really, really be, transformational to my clients. And so anyway, super passionate about helping business owners, really get that, get that independent business. And I'm happy to be here, Charles. So that's my story in a nutshell.
The war, how does it feel to be in the middle of a war? What do you remember from your personal first-hand experience as a kid?
Well, as a kid, what I remember was just how fast it happened. It was like 1 minute, I'm hanging out with my friends, and the next minute, we're on a plane, and we're coming to really a strange land, from my perspective, as a kid. And it was a shock. I think that was the biggest thing about it. It was a shock. And then on top of that, they made us feel like, oh yeah, it's only going to be a short period of time. And so we had this expectation. And on top of that, my dad wasn't with us when we left. So my dad actually stayed behind. So it was my mother and my I have 3 sisters, but it was one of my other sisters was actually with us at the time. So it was myself and my younger sister, my mother, and my dad was left there because he was the administrative director for Peace Corps. So he had to make sure all the volunteers there were taken care of, and that they were being evacuated. And he was like one of the only people that knew where they all were, because they're all scattered across Liberia. So he had to basically help the Marines escort and find these volunteers. And that took about 3 months. So we didn't even, for a long time, we didn't even know if my dad was alive. We weren't getting any communication because nobody called, right? The phones are down, everything else. So I remember it being a time of just really intense fear, and not knowing what what was going to happen, and especially at that age, being 10, there's a lot that we don't understand, being 10. It's like, well, why isn't dad here? Why can't I see my grandparents? Why can't I, all these different things. And so that was definitely a defining moment in my life, no doubt about it.
Right. And as an athlete, what was your mindset back in the day, and how did that mindset help you accomplish stuff in your entrepreneurial life?
I think my mindset has always been win. I mean, and everyone's different. I think it's never been about fame for me or fortune per se, but I think it's about something that's missing from, I think, a lot of the culture now, and it's really about mastery. And I think that's why, because I could have done a lot in sports. I mean, I could have been a football player. I could have been, I had like a 4.3 40. I mean, there's a lot. I was very gifted as an athlete, and there's a lot that I could have did. But what kept drawing me back to track was this idea that I could master this thing, and it was something where I remember I had this. This was way back, remember, but I had this newspaper clipping that I tore out, and it was this guy. He was like 95, 96, and he had the world record for the 100 meters at the time. And he said, like, quote, he said, they're gonna have to take my dead body off the track. I was like, this guy is my hero. Like, I don't know this guy, but you know what? I remember I put that on my wall, because to me, that's what it's about. It's about mastering this thing. It's not just about, necessarily even the Olympics or anything, but it's about, like, the Olympics is a recognition of the mastery that you attain, right? That's basically what it is. It's a byproduct of the mastery, but it's the mastery itself that attracts me, to the sport, So as an athlete, I take the same premise to my business, right? Because like, if you look at, and I think over the years I've probably bought, most of the stuff out there. I've seen, I think, a lot of the the marketing stuff, the business stuff, and what I feel like is missing from a lot of these books, everything else, is just straight up specifics. Like, what's the standard? What is there a system, right? Is there a system? And I've literally spent, pretty much, I would say my whole career so far has been about taking business growth and turning it into a very specific model that people, that I can duplicate over and over again in different industries, but something that people can actually, go, okay, this is what it is, and I just need to master it. And it's very specific, it's very laid out, it's very systematic. And so I think that, even I remember, even like going back to track, right? So I had a coach, we were watching Coach Sylvie. He was a tough coach, though, man. But I remember one time I was struggling with the blocks at the time. And I remember asking him, I was like, any feedback on my block start? Anything he'd help me with? He said, get out. And this was like my freshman year. So, I remember in high school, they would, spend a lot of time with you, and they do drills. They kind of handhold you, right? They kind of pander you a little bit because it's high school. But at the U of O, at that level, Division I, athletics, it's a job, and they expect you to just perform. Like, they're not there to handle you. The coach's job is just to make sure that you're ready, from a fitness standpoint and mindset. But they're not trying to sit there and walk you through how to get out of the blocks. Like, that's your job, So he told me, he said, Eric, get out. And I was like, how is that coaching? That was my response right there. How is that coaching? Like, you're supposed to coach me, you're supposed to show me, right? And I realized, no, this is my responsibility. I got to figure this shit out. And so I went out, excuse my French, but I went out, I'd be out there at 8 o'clock, remember, sometimes just working on my start, man. Myself and I just working on it. And even now, it's one of my best parts of my race, just because of that experience. I really had to master it. And so that mindset, I think, is what is missing from a lot of business owners now. They feel like it should be given to them, or they feel like it's like you have to have a passion enough for whatever it is to do, and to take full responsibility over it. And then once you figure out, you want to codify it. So once I figured out my start, I wrote it down. Okay, here's what I do, right? I systematize it for myself, right? And now, simple as, when the gun goes off, I'm going to focus on my breathing, keep my head down for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to transition. And I practice that over and over. But that was my system, right? And I did that every single time, and I always have great starts. But same thing in business. You can't, you have to take what's in here, and you have to document it. You gotta make it a procedure, you gotta make it a process, and then you gotta master it. And then, if you're serious, then you're gonna help other people master it as well, because you want to delegate that. So that is the, I think that sort of mindset is what, made me really good at, what I do, is because even from the beginning, I just intuitively knew that I don't want to ever go through this process of learning this particular skill again. I've mastered it, but I'm done with it. I need to move on to something else. Like basically move on to something. Don't just sit there all day long on one thing. Learn it, go on to the next thing, because there's so many things that we need to, and that's another thing too I learned is it's not even about mastery. Doesn't necessarily mean perfection, right? Because I think people also get that confused. I would say mastery is about getting good enough at something to where you can do it without thinking about it, and you can do it quickly and efficiently whenever you want to do it. I see a lot of people, they're just stuck on the same thing. Like I have I've had clients in the past where it's like, okay, we have your marketing dialed in, we're making money. So why are you trying to change something about your marketing? That's done, bro. Like, so this is the kind of conversation we've had, right? So it's like, we need to concentrate on your hiring. But it's like, it's like, it's not broken. We got it prepared. Let's move on to the next thing, right? So those are like these little, so again, it goes back kind of like the psychology of the owner, right? Like it's those little things that affect how quickly you can get to that next step, get that next result. And so, yeah. So anyway,
thank you, Eric. Sure. Where can people find out more about you?
Oh yeah, so yeah, just go to independentbusinessbuilder.com. That would be kind of the first start, and and yeah, just if you like what you see, that feel free to contact me. Go from there.
There you go. And my name is Charles Cormier, host of Founder Wisdom Podcast. That was Eric Dahl.